People have been worried about a recession for a while now, and the most recent events have caused the stock market to take a dive. So people are obviously panicking about a crash, a recession following that crash, and even worse, possibly a depression. This is something that could happen. We don't know because there is so much uncertainty and volatility right now. It's really hard to know what's coming next. And in times of economic uncertainty, I like to keep a list of things to do so that I'm not making super emotional decisions. It's really easy right now to make very emotional decisions because you see your investments, your 401k, your Roth IRA dropping. My Roth IRA, which I shared the balance 1 month ago on this channel, was at $91,036, and today it's at $74,781. That means I have lost $16,255 in about 2 weeks. That's a lot of money to see just disappearing from my net worth at one time. And that could obviously make me panic. And I know a lot of people out there are kind of panicking right now because seeing those numbers is scary. Luckily for me, I graduated into a recession, could not find a full-time 9-to-5 job, and had to couch surf because I didn't have a place to live. So I've been at the low point before. I've experienced that. And the thing that it taught me was resilience. Basically, you are going to figure out how to get through this time. It might not be fun. It might include sacrifice, and it might include a lot of anxiety and fear, but the skills you learn at times like this are very helpful. So today in this video, I want to share my list of what I do during times of economic uncertainty as someone that's anxious and has lived through a couple different times of the stock market dropping. Let's talk about it. Number one, this is an emotional time and very volatile. If you are making decisions based on emotion right now, those can lock in your losses, make things worse, and put you in a worse position to come out of something like this. Basically, you want to breathe, take some deep breaths, calm yourself down, calm your body down as much as you can, maybe stop watching the news, take a step back, and breathe. This will allow you not to make quick decisions like selling everything at the very lowest point or locking in your losses by just panicking and switching to a different investment. You may need to make those decisions, but you want to do it when you're not panicking and super emotional. Maybe you don't need to do that. Basically, everyone's situation is different. If you are 20 and this is happening, this might be a great time for you because you can invest now at these lower prices, and over time, the stock market should recover and you may make out a ton of money out of this situation. But if you're closer to retirement or you just retired, this could be really scary and maybe you need to talk to your advisor, but don't make any rash decisions based on emotion of this just happening really quickly in your panic. That is the first thing that I do. I make sure I'm not panicking. I don't make any decisions based on panic. And then I move on to what can I actually do? What can I control? The first is spending. Basically, when these times come, you can control what you're spending, and a lot of us have already been cutting back. Personally, I've been cutting back because we were in the process of trying to buy a home, so I was already not spending money. Now, I'm definitely not spending any more money because I know that if things are rough for a while, I want to have as much money in my pocket as possible. Your job right now should be to save as much as you can and stack that cash. The number one rule of personal finance is to spend less than you make. And in times like this, it's even more important. If you have been feeling out of control with your spending, your money is just flying out of your hands, this is the time to stop that, to cut back, and to actually reel it back in, cut all of the extra trips, the extra spending, and put that money in a savings account so that you have options. And that is the second thing to do when times are kind of economically volatile and you don't know what's coming next, is to build up a savings buffer. Maybe you don't have one right now, so that makes things even more scary. When you don't have savings, things like this, where you can't control what is happening, feel much scarier than they need to be. If you have a big pile of cash, it's not quite as scary when things go wrong. So hopefully, while times have been good, you've been able to build up an emergency fund. It's something that you've been working on. And right now you want to increase that. Maybe you have 1 month of savings. You can increase that to 3 to 6 months of expenses of savings, or even more. Personally, we were already planning to try to increase ours to about 12 months of expenses. And while we hadn't gotten to that goal and we had barely just started it, That's what I'm going to be working on right now, is increasing the amount of savings that we have. If you don't have an emergency fund and you haven't started one, now is a time where you cut all expenses and you start stacking up your cash so that you have an emergency fund, because recessions generally also come with job losses, and there's already been a lot of layoffs already, which is the next thing that you need to actually worry about, which is losing your job. For me, the first time I went through a recession, I didn't even have a job, so I didn't have to worry about losing it because I couldn't get one. So I had to prepare for job loss by figuring out a bunch of part-time jobs that I could cobble together to make a income that could help me survive. So now I know that when a potential recession is coming, I need to prepare for a job loss if I have a income. If I have a job, if I have an income, I need to be prepared to lose that. What can I do if that job is gone? Can I find extra income sources? Can I start side hustles? Can I drive for Uber? There are so many different things you can do now that are all gig economy jobs that maybe aren't your dream job. They aren't the thing you would do forever, but they can get you through something like a layoff and recession. So maybe your plan is to figure out what you could do if you lost your job, and also to figure out your bare bones budget. If you lose your job and you don't have as much income coming in, what are the bare minimums that you can spend so that you're not spending too much money? What is the very least you can spend and survive so that you can get through this period and figure out the next job you'll eventually get? Honestly, too often in the personal finance world, I see people talking about a recession as this woohoo exciting thing where you can buy things on sale, you can buy stocks on sale. But the fact that most people lose their job during a large recession or worse is kind of overlooked. If you lose your job, you probably aren't going to be purchasing stocks on sale. You're going to be trying to figure out how to pay your light bill, how to feed your family. You're not going to be thinking about how to make the most money possible and get rich off of a recession. You're going to be trying to figure out how to survive a layoff, how to survive on the bare minimum. Start thinking about that now, because having a plan for when this happens can be so helpful and you don't feel as scared and panicked because you've already thought through what to do. And not only can you start thinking about it, but you could find a second job or a side hustle now. You can start working on those income streams now. You don't have to wait until you actually lose your job. You could dedicate some time, maybe a couple hours a day if you have the time, to pursue a side hustle or way to make money. Maybe you don't have an emergency fund right now. That means now is the time to pick up some gig work and put that money all toward an emergency fund. Do what you can to start increasing your income and prepare for a potential job loss. The next thing that's always on my list is to put off large purchases or things that are costly. Unfortunately, right now we're kind of in the middle of buying a house and we've signed contracts, so I'm not technically following my own advice right now, which makes me a little nervous. But generally, in times like this, you want to put off those big purchases. I will say this time is a little bit different because the tariffs that are going to be affecting US customers might make things more costly in the future. So maybe now is the time. It's really hard to know when things are so uncertain and things could be walked back or changed without any sort of kind of basis in reality. So it's a little hard with this one. But in general, when things are economically uncertain, you want to save your money instead of making big purchases. Most purchases can wait until things are less costly or you are more secure in your employment and you have money saved for emergencies. So if you don't have those things set up, if you think you might lose your job, if you don't have savings already, definitely put off those big purchases. If you have those first things covered, if you're kind of in a more stable place, then it makes a little bit more sense to go ahead with the purchases if you think the cost is going to rise. But in general, I usually put off big purchases when things are a little bit shaky with the economy. Thing that I do personally is I keep investing. This is something that is going to vary based on risk tolerance. If you are completely panicking right now, you can't handle a drop in the market, then maybe you need to talk to an advisor and change your plan to match your risk tolerance. For me, I've seen this before. I actually started investing right before that recession I talked about where I graduated college. So my first investment was made and then about 6 months later went down to less than half. So I have a lot more comfortability with losses and my risk tolerance is a little bit higher for investing because I'm also still on the younger side. I don't need this money tomorrow. I still have about 30 years until I probably need to start using this money. So I'm not as concerned and will probably keep investing as long as we still have income. I'm not an advisor. I am not a financial advisor. This is not advice. This is just what I'm doing based on my personal situation. But investing is a very personal based situation, and it depends on so many variables that having someone that is an actual advisor is a great idea. And don't listen to someone on the internet, especially people telling you to buy certain stocks. And the final thing to do, especially if you are super anxious by the idea of a recession or your money disappearing or stock market losses, is to stop watching the news, stop checking your account so often. This is something that I see people do when they're super anxious and freaking out, is they're constantly refreshing their balances and you're watching it drop. You really don't need to do that. If you have decided that you are going to keep your money invested, you don't need to keep watching it. But even if you're not an anxious person, generally watching more of the same coverage that is fear-based can make you a lot more scared and panic. Basically, all of media wants you to view their content and they make it as sensational as possible. And while there is real reporting there, they also really want you to tune in. So they drive things based on fear, like you losing all of your money in a recession. Yes, you do need to be informed of what's happening. You do need to know what's happening with your money because no one cares about your money more than you do. But sometimes watching the news over and over and reading things and checking things just over and over puts you in this loop of anxiety and doom. And that is not a good place to be because it's a lot harder to make rational, good decisions when you're in that place. So sometimes you need to step back, take a second, and then you can recalibrate and come back and make a plan based on logic and what you know to be true for yourself and past history and what you think is going to happen in the future. But you can't do that when your anxiety is high and you're doom scrolling. That's my list. I'm personally trying to stay rational and stay out of the fear-based decision-making where my anxiety is ruling and choosing the decisions for me. That's what I'm doing personally. I would love to know what you are doing right now to prepare for more volatility and potential losses or a recession. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.